The chief of an Alberta First Nation is watching to see what happens after the Supreme Court ruled his community wasn't given enough land under a historic treaty. CTV's Tony Grace now on a case that is creating fresh conversations.
On this First Nation in southern Alberta, a century-and-a-half-old promise is back in focus.
Those particular treaties that our ancestors were involved in were very sacred, sacred covenants.
The Supreme Court of Canada ruling unanimously on Friday, the Blood Tribe near Lethbridge should have received 421 square kilometers more land than it did under an 1877 treaty, which promised 1 square mile for every family of 5.
We are pleased with that declaration that has been made. We've been working on this particular matter for many decades.
Justice Michelle O'Bonsawin writing, Canada dishonorably breached the treaty land entitlement provisions of Treaty Number 7, saying treaty promises were intended to be honored so long as the sun rises and the river flows. The discrepancy was pointed out by a Blackfoot researcher in the early 1970s, based on population data from the 1800s, setting off decades of court battles beginning in 1980.
My grandfather to the 7th generation.
Nodding to his ancestors, one of whom was in original treaty talks, the other who helped launch the fight over this one, the chief calls this ruling significant.
I am sure that their spirits are very glad that we have reached this point and
says he's ready to discuss compensation. The federal government says the two parties are actively in negotiations on resolving this past injustice.
We are willing to begin very serious discussions in resolving this matter.
A resolution the chief will only say he expects to exceed the cap available under a tribunal process, which handles treaty land challenges like this out of court.
This is going to be beyond, way beyond the $150 million limitation.
Beyond that, the chief says he's not going to discuss specifics in public, saying there's a lot riding on those negotiations, and he's hoping the government will do, in his words, the honorable thing. Heather.
Tony Grace in Toronto.